United States President Donald Trump has announced the lowest refugee ceiling in American history, slashing the annual admissions cap to 7,500 for the 2026 fiscal year. The move represents a sharp reduction from previous years and has drawn criticism from human rights organizations and refugee advocacy groups, who warn that it could leave vulnerable populations without a safe haven. The new ceiling comes amid a broader shift in U.S. immigration policy, reflecting an administration stance that prioritizes national security and border control over humanitarian admissions. Critics argue that the drastic cut undermines America's long-standing role as a global leader in refugee resettlement and could have long-term humanitarian and diplomatic consequences. The 7,500 refugee ceiling for the 2026 fiscal year, published in a White House notice on Thursday, represents a dramatic reduction from the 125,000 cap set under former President Joe Biden. Experts say the cut signals a fundamental shift in U.S. humanitarian policy, prioritizing strict limits on refugee admissions over the country's historical role as a safe haven for displaced populations. In a controversial move, Trump's annual refugee determination, issued on September 30, indicates that the United States will give priority to South Africans from the white Afrikaner minority, raising concerns among human rights organizations and immigration advocates about the potential ethnic and racial implications of the policy. Critics argue that such prioritization departs from the traditional approach of considering refugees based on need and vulnerability rather than ethnicity. The decision represents not only the most restrictive refugee policy in the United States since the creation of the resettlement program in 1980 but also marks a historic first. A U.S. administration has explicitly identified a specific ethnic group, white South Africans, as the main focus of refugee resettlement. This unprecedented move has raised concerns among human rights organizations, refugee advocates, and international observers, who argue that prioritizing admissions based on ethnicity departs from long-standing principles of humanitarian need and vulnerability. Trump suspended all refugee admissions immediately after retaking office in January, asserting that the system could only resume once it aligned with U.S. interests. He later signed an executive order pausing the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program, USRAP, citing the need to prioritize national security, safeguard public resources, and ensure that resettlement does not compromise the availability of resources for Americans. The White House explained that the new cap was justified by humanitarian concerns or is otherwise in the national interest.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to Mirror Now.